You're listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Here are your hosts, Fran Chismar and Tom Kinesic.
Welcome back to The Buzz, brought to you by the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. I am Fran Chismar.
And I'm Tom Kinesic, and welcome to another Buzz episode, our special holiday edition Buzz episode.
Yeah.
Which is episode 190?
Yeah, so you're getting this in between Christmas and New Year's. So It's episode 190, so I hope everyone had a happy holiday. And after this, I hope you have a very happy New Year. So we're coming up on that.
And we have a really... Well, we're still sharing some good native plant stuff. We're going to recap our top 10 episodes of the year. We have a phone call that we want to touch on.
We do have a phone call, and it's not Saul.
It's not Saul. It's actually, I really enjoyed the phone. I'm glad we listened to it beforehand. Sometimes we just play them live and live react.
Yes.
This one I'm glad we listened to because we were asked to look something up and then expand upon it. And had we not, we wouldn't have been able to do that.
We wouldn't have been prepared at all.
Yeah. So...
But we do have some follow-up for today.
Yeah. And Fran, I am going to let you go because even though I said I was prepared to start, I realized I never actually moved the script over to my laptop. So I'm in the process of doing that right now.
All right. So the first thing we have, Tom and I just recently recorded. This will be a future episode of the podcast, but we recorded a Zoom growers panel for the Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve Land Ethics Symposium upcoming, which will be the 24th annual, and I believe it's on Thursday, February 15th of 2024. So our guests are Jim McKenzie from Octorara Native Plant Nursery, Donna Derringer from the retail Bowman's Hill Garden Center or Plant Center, Native Plant Center, and John Mark Courtney from Kind Earth Growers. And we have a really good growers panel, and it's We had a fantastic discussion about where native nurseries have come from, what's the current trends, where do we see native nurseries going in the next 5 years. So if you want to see our faces and actually see this panel, and we'll all be live for questions and answers, we really encourage you to sign up for this conference so that you can win. And there's a lot of other great talks as well. We were very honored to be asked to speak at this one.
For sure.
And the panel is a fantastic panel, and the conversation, we could have talked for, I think, 3 hours. And then the next day, we're going to air that conversation on the podcast with some continuation. We only had 50 minutes for the conference, but we talked for, I think, an hour and almost 40 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, but if you want to see it, which you don't always get the opportunity to, and be part of the live question and answer, and also get to witness other fantastic speakers that day,
for sure,
presentations, make sure you sign up for that. I think it's at bwhp.org, if I remember correctly, for Bowman's Hill Wildflower.
I believe that's
Preserve.
right, yeah. So, and Fran, you actually mentioned you've been watching something at home that you thought was interesting to touch on too, right?
I did, yeah. We just happened to be flicking through Max and caught a new documentary called Trees and Other Entanglements. And I just wanted to recommend it. I don't want to give any spoilers, but it follows probably like 5 to 10 people and how maybe their businesses or their lives deal with trees. And it's from all different aspects.
Yeah.
So it may be lumber producers, it may be bonsai growers, it may be photographers, but it was all different aspects of people's lives. It may be someone that's planting trees. I just thought I think it's like an hour and a half to 2 hours, and it was besides the filmography or the cinematography being fantastic, it was just a wonderful documentary. So if you have Max and you have the opportunity to watch that, I would definitely watch it.
Yeah. It kind of sounded like a project that I considered, but I just never will have the time to do, that I wanted to do, called Native Plant People. And I wanted to go and just talk to people who their lives were really impacted by native plants. You guys know the people. And I was like, do you make it a podcast? Like a 8-part series podcast with interviews?
It could be.
Or do you take the next step and make it like a
feature
little documentary series.
Which would be wonderful. Yeah. And that's like, I thought some of the interesting...
So no one steal my idea. It's mine. I laid claim to that in my brain over 2 years ago, and I just haven't gotten around to doing it, so no one else can touch it. It's mine. No, I think it would be really cool to watch, and I think it's same kind of concept. Like, people are into a lot of things, but into native plants for so many different reasons. Yeah. And it's like they carve their lives in different ways. So
I think, one of the interesting contrasts to me, it's one of the people they highlight is George Weyerhaeuser from Weyerhaeuser. I think it's Weyerhaeuser Companies, but they do logging and paper wood products. But then they also followed a man who planted trees and still does after the areas had been logged. And his business was a huge business, but he still plants trees. His business still plants trees, and he himself has planted. He's closing in. At the time of the documentary, he was close to planting his 1 millionth tree himself, which was pretty wonderful. And it's all different aspects coming from all different angles, and it was telling stories about their lives and how they intermingle. So I just thought if you get the opportunity to watch it, it's not necessarily about native plants. Yeah. But it's just connection with nature.
For sure. So. And next on our things to touch on is Fran, you told me about this meme. I'd seen the meme too.
And
do you want to describe it or do it?
Yeah. Your father even said he heard about it. He brought it up today. You were in a meeting. You could talk about it.
Yeah, so you may have seen that Taylor Swift meme talking about her romance. Taylor Swift, we haven't touched on Taylor Swift at all.
Ever.
We are very late to this party with her I'll use your phrase, entanglement with Travis Kelce. Yeah. And we're sports fans and music fans.
Yeah, totally.
And but a meme popped up about her. She owns 2 private planes, a Dassault Falcon 7X and a Dassault Falcon 900. And in 3 months, to go see Travis Kelce, she's used up to 12,622 gallons of jet fuel, not just regular fuel, jet fuel. And based on those statistics, that produces 138 tons of CO2 emissions. And to offset those emissions, she's going to need to plant 2,282 trees. So,
and
if only we knew a place near her hometown.
Yeah, I know.
That grew trees.
We're not that far.
Native trees, even better.
But. And they were saying those trees would have to grow for at least 10 years in order to offset the environmental damage. And it just progressively, as she flies, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. So if only there was someone she could partner with to make sure these trees got planted and we could help offset that.
Her producer owes us a favor, so we can maybe we'll reach out and that. I don't want to get into that whole story, but it is a true favor. It is a true story in a sense, a very roundabout way. But yeah, what I was thinking, and this is a free idea for the people, is trees get overplayed. We talked about it all the time. Trees are great. Trees are amazing. But there's so many other ecosystems that we are big on plant trees where we should plant trees. That's not Nebraska, not grasslands in the southeast. So flip the meme, make it a figure out with the math on how many acres of grasslands you need to save in the southeast. SGI. Do this. The Southeastern Grasslands Institute. This is free for you. I gotta tell you, I know some of you guys listen. Make that meme, put it up there, new promotional material. I even wanted to do one with when they had I just don't know how to make memes, but there was the Taylor Swift, and when this all started, and she's in the suite, and the things are coming up, and it's like Taylor Swift eating chicken tenders with supposedly ranch, and I was like, they put people started putting other things up there. Like whiskey and all that, supposedly Buffalo Trace. I was like, we should do some native plant stuff. Put a native plant with supposedly pawpaw. And but yeah, I just don't know how to do it.
I have an idea that I want us to keep for us. Mm-hmm. And I thought about.
Well, should you say it?
Yeah, I'm going to say it. This is ours.
Thousands of people, or?
But I thought because we can execute it, I don't know that anyone could. Not just anyone could execute it. I always thought that you and I should start a nonprofit where we take money. And if you want to, because all these tree plantings that happen on other continents, if you want tree plantings or grassland plantings or some kind of planting, you donate money to our nonprofit. We distribute them throughout the company to other nonprofits that are doing the good work in the right places.
Yeah.
You know, because we have the connections throughout the country. We know who's doing all this fantastic work. So if you want to...
You could do it as like a grant thing.
Yeah.
So people apply for a grant.
Yeah. And we can vet the nonprofits doing the work, what kind of work it's being done, and split it up. Make sure that grasslands are being planted. Make sure that wetlands are being restored, that type of thing. And just make sure that the right work is being done in our boundaries, on our borders, and done the right way.
Yeah.
And it's the right tree. It's not just Arbor Day Foundation, we're going to plant all these trees that aren't native to that area in areas they shouldn't be. It's going to be the right plants are going to be done in the right place for the right reason.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's a cool idea. I don't know where we have the time, but I do think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Another charitable idea. I don't know how this one exactly works, but I think it would be cool. NFL, National Football League, just is wrapping up their like My Cause, My Cleats week, where they have like basically they have special cleats. They usually have to adhere to strict uniform codes. Yeah. A couple weeks a year, they're able to have whatever cleats they want. But the idea was put something on the cleats, auction off the cleats, and then the money goes to a cause. So a lot of times the design has something to do with that cause. And I looked through they put it on the NFL website.
Okay.
I looked through every single NFL player. I couldn't find that was doing this. That was on the list, at least. Couldn't find a single one that was donating to a native plant cause or an insect cause. The closest one was there's a guy who I hadn't heard of. I can't remember his name, and I don't remember what team he was on. It was an A team, I think. He was donating his to Ducks Unlimited, which I think is a great cause. Yeah. But I was like, oh man. Think of all the possibilities. Xerxes Society has a player on the Seahawks because they're in Oregon, which Seahawks are probably their closest
or
team.
Washington.
Yeah. So
you're talking about
they're based in Oregon, but the Seattle Seahawks are in Washington.
They're close.
So they're close. That's their closest NFL team, and they have a Seattle Seahawks player with cleats covered in the blue Xerxes butterfly.
Yeah.
Auctioned off, going for. There's so much potential in design.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. That's wow. We're just like a bevy of great ideas today.
Someone should capitalize on this.
Yeah, but I think the nonprofit would be great. Like, just obviously, if we had one, we wouldn't be able to run it. We'd have to hire someone to run it. Yeah. So, and just offer all this money off as grants. So if you want to, so for companies, not companies that say for everything you buy, we'll plant a tree or we'll plant a native plant. They can partner with our nonprofit, and we make sure it happens in our borders done the right way.
Yeah. Yep.
So there you go.
So
we should probably talk about native plants.
Yes. Yeah. And we have two that we want to talk about right now. Let's talk about the native plants that we're vibing with this week in That's Hot.
That's hot.
And Fran, if you don't mind, I'll go first.
Yeah, please. I was going to say, that's how out of touch we are. We're talking Taylor Swift. I'm using Paris Hilton.
Yeah.
that's how far behind we are in this.
Mine is one I've talked about a bunch. I've been struggling. I haven't been spending as much time outside lately, and I've had a lot going on, so I haven't been able to interact with plants. And I was really struggling for picking out a plant, so I was like, let me walk through the nursery a little bit, see if something stands out to me. And I know we've talked about this plant a bunch, but the one I picked was Morella pennsylvanica, which I'm realizing I did not put the name in here. I was like, what were you going to guess?
I don't know. I was reading it. I'm like, do I know what this is?
And which is Northern Bayberry.
Yeah. Formerly Myrica.
Yeah, formerly Myrica pennsylvanica. The quick description of it is a spreading mulch branch shrub, usually 3 to 12 feet tall. Glossy, fragrant, gray-green, egg-shaped leaves remain on the plant in the southern parts of its range or turn tan-colored and persist in the winter farther north. Green catkins appear before leaves. Clusters of small, round, hard, white berries remain on the female plant all winter. That information is from wildflower.org. And yeah, it's nice because it kind of gets like this greenish, maroonish, tannish color in the winter around where we are. They typically hold their leaves here. And then feeling festive, I was like, well, now's a good time for bayberry candles. And I know I've talked about bayberry candles and talked about this plant and That's Hot before, but yeah, that was what I came up with.
I like that.
It's an awesome plant. It's one that I keep coming back to and say, I really need to plant that in my yard, and I just haven't yet, and I'm going to do it.
I don't have it in my yard, but that's probably a great one. The area I'm solarizing, I'm hoping to make it a meadow. When we had our stamped concrete patio put in, I had to dig up a native plant garden, and I have everything potted, and I want to replant it, and I think I want to make it like a small meadow.
Yeah,
like a small
that's
meadow
cool.
project. So maybe even around the edges, I could have that. I think that would be a good addition. My plant is not something that's native to where we're at. I took my description from wildflower.org also, but common snowberry, which is Symphyrocarpus alba. I was thinking of the white berries, and it's something that I have seen. It's just not something that we see locally to us. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's a shrub reaching up to 5 foot tall, blooming white to pink bell-shaped flowers in June and July. It's sparsely branched and will form thickets up to 4 to 6 foot wide. It's native from Maine to Alaska, south to West Virginia, and then across to California. So it's pretty much across the top of the United States. And I know that includes us, but I've never – have you seen one in the wild ever, like in New Jersey?
No, I have not.
No, either have I. It is native to wooded hillsides and rocky open slopes. So I would imagine probably northwest New Jersey is where you would see it naturally. It's the larval host to the Vashti sphinx moth. The fruit, which are large snow-white drupes, are poisonous to humans, but are loved by birds. Songbirds, game birds, small mammals, and browsers use this plant for food, cover, and nesting sites. So if you have the right area, even though morella typically grows naturally by like its coastal plain by the beach, I've seen it. That's a pretty common garden center plant, ornamental plant that you can plant. Both plants are really good choices, especially if you're looking at providing for birds over the winter or wildlife. So if you have the opportunity and get your hands on either of these plants, plant them in your yard.
Yeah, awesome.
So we do not have That's Hot this week to make room for a topic, and we want everyone to have a chance to vote since we're recording this early. We're actually recording this before Christmas. So we're going to announce the winner on episode 192. I think right now I have like a slight lead. I think I'm up 5-4. But it just went up 2 days ago. So the voting really has just started to begin.
Yeah.
So I thought instead we could go right to listener shout-outs.
Listener, shout out.
It's a little on the mild side for
sure is, yeah.
There hasn't been a lot of interaction because we just recorded not that long ago.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, and Tom, you can actually speak to this one as well. I wanted to give a shout out to Zach Rittner, who has called in before, and we had the opportunity to go to his school. He's a environmental science teacher, and we got to go sit with his environmental science club and hear their presentation for what they wanted to do with their courtyard. Mm-hmm. And it was just very impressive to have kids of that age be environment. I know we talked about this on another podcast, but Zach has done such a wonderful job, and I just really appreciate the work that he's doing. And he spreads the message and supports us all the time. So just wanted to say thank you to Zach.
Yeah, and we had another comment on Spotify.
We did.
And this one, I love this name. It's the Nicey Nice. So, no, thank you for writing in. And what I want to do at some point is...
The Nicey Nice is, I know who it is, because you can tell from the photo. It's someone in our Facebook group. Do you want me to tell you who it is, or do you want to guess?
Do we want to, what's the term?
Divulge.
No, there's a term for when I out someone's like online persona.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember what it's called.
We can keep it under wraps.
They want to.
She can choose to announce it.
You gave away.
Oh wow!
You gave a little bit away.
Yeah,
there.
she could choose to out herself on the Facebook group if she so chooses. But she uses the same avatar, so it's pretty obvious.
All right.
To me.
I'll have to look into that.
All right.
So, but yeah, no, thank you for the comment, and we encourage people to keep doing that because it's my goal. One of my New Year's resolutions is to start to actually manage the Spotify questions and like can you respond to comments?
You cannot.
Oh, you can't.
But
I
you
thought
can.
you could.
No, and a lot of people
we're
ask us questions in it.
Yeah.
But by the time I see the question, sometimes it's a little too far past to go back and revisit. But we can change the question. It's set up with what do you think of the episode? But as soon as it airs, you can go in and change the question.
Yeah, I might do that.
If you want something specific.
All right.
So
it's a tentative New Year's resolution then for me. I got to do more
We haven't
research.
managed it at all. And since they started, I think maybe I've changed 2 questions. So I haven't been that creative. But we appreciate all the feedback.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
We love it. And again, we've had more 5-star reviews on Apple, but just no one that's
and we appreciate those too. We just like giving you the recognition that you did it. So if you want to write something, I'll give you a shout out in this space right here. So, all right, it's top 10 time.
Oh, wait, you want to do questions?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't have. It's not. I didn't have marked in mine.
That's why I wrote it in mine, just so I wouldn't forget.
Hold up, it's not top 10 time. We're doing a question first.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want to have them answered immediately.
It's a simple question.
No, I didn't hear you. What was your question?
All right. So, the person that called in has been on the podcast numerous times. But this is in response to our mosquito control episode. And I thought it was good to have a professional's view on this.
Yeah.
And Tom and I were very happy. The person actually asked to talk to us so we could say, we're like, no, why don't you call in? We'd love to hear from you. So instead of priming this more, let me just play it.
Hello, Fran and Tom. It's Richard McCoy calling from Richard McCoy Horticultural Services. I'm just calling to follow up on the continuing discussion of mosquito spraying. Hopefully to try to provide some insight to the listeners on how we approach not just mosquito spraying, but spraying in general. And I'll try to be as brief and as quick as possible. Just to remind your listeners real quick, McCoy Horticulture is a land care company that has transitioned away from synthetic chemicals. The approach is holistic, first and foremost. With the utilization of native strategies, native plants, et cetera, and beneficials. We've also been on past episodes 1946 and 88. So I think, first of all, the most important thing for folks to remember is that anytime they hear cide, as in CIDE, as in pesticide, fungicide, or rodenticide, that implies that they are going to kill something. No matter what the material is being applied. If it's a pesticide, it will kill the pest, and most likely it will also kill non-target inhabitants as well. So spraying for mosquitoes, fleas, and ticks, or other using Air Fingers quote organic methods, our philosophy is that we'd much rather plant native plants that tackle the issues of pest and balancing the ecosystem. That said, we do, again, Air Fingers quote, offer organic spray applications for flea, ticks, and mosquitoes as a last resort. Also, we do have clients that want flea, tick, and mosquito applications if we're unable to resolve that issue or at least keep the nuisance pest below an acceptable threshold for the client. Then and only then will we use a product to suppress that pest issue. The materials that we use are completely made of essential oils and are 25B exempt: citrus oil, clove oil, peppermint oil, various different other essential oils. It's important for listeners to maybe consider that when they ask or discussing this with their landscaper or pest control company, that if the material they're applying is 25B exempt, and maybe you guys can follow up and elaborate on what 25B exempt is, Fran and Tom, after my call here. Just as a side note, also too, for your listeners, if by law any applicator must disclose what material it is they're applying. Don't let them tell you otherwise, because again, by law, they do have to tell you what it is the material they're applying is. The benefit to using essential oils instead of using pyrethrin, and in some cases pyrethrins can be categorized as organic. Essential oils are more of a contact kill, which means they have less persistent residuals than a synthetic. So that being said, the benefit to using essential oils when you're spraying for some of these pests, when applied properly, they do work well, and in concert with the other strategies I mentioned above. So you may unfortunately kill unintended beneficials when making applications of essential oils. However, the risk of affecting new visitors to the garden is greatly reduced. Essential oil persistence is almost zero versus that of a persistence of.
Unfortunately, our our comment line only allows you to record up to 3 minutes, so it kind of cut Rick off. I would have loved to have known what else he had to say. But listening to this, the first thing Tom and I kind of commented to each other was, if you're hiring a professional to do something like this, that's the professional. That's the type of professional you want to be dealing with, because that was more knowledge than I had gotten from anyone else, not including like our guest on the thing, but just like professionals that do this for a living. That's the kind of company with the information that they're giving you and giving you the options and letting you know what is about to happen or what could happen is really what you want, and giving you options on ways that you can handle it. I just thought that was such a fantastic call, and I'm really glad that Rick called in with that information.
Yeah, I do too, and or I was too, and it's really important to think about that whole everything that's going on there.
Yeah.
And I think he outlined some great options, and it's something that, there's going to be times where you do need to use something that's going to kill the issue.
Yeah.
And
like if
you don't want something, sometimes it's better to have something that's instant, quick acting, and then it's gone versus that's a lot of the neonicotinoid debate too.
Exactly. And Rick, he said a lot of things that we can use in our talking point graphic that we've been talking about. We haven't forgot. We just have so much on our plate. It's coming in a few weeks. But I love that he led with these issues typically lead because an imbalance in the ecosystem, and we try to balance it first before we take that next step.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. So he also mentioned 25B Exempt, which is I recommend everyone, if you want to know more, to go to the website to read about it. But this is the deemed by the U.S. EPA minimum risk pesticides exempted from FIFRA registration. So it's minimum risk. There's a lot of information on this website. It's epa.gov/minimum-risk-pesticides. So I'll make sure that I put this on the show notes too, so that definitely. You can follow up. I'm just writing a note right now. So I just thought it was a great call.
Yeah.
And it just leads the other side a little bit how it should be. Now, if someone came to your door and approached you this way, it's a whole different conversation than what we were saying we've been approached with coming to our door. So kudos.
Yeah,
to
definitely.
Stay tuned for more of the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Welcome back to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery.
Now it's top 10 time.
Do
you have a little fancy jingle to play for this?
You know what? I thought about it, but I thought about it too late. I was hoping I had something, but I don't really have anything. But I did list this from 10 to 1, so we are going backwards. So you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
And that way you can talk about the number. Well, you can announce the number 1. So number 10, just squeaking in at the last minute, beating out last year's number 1. And we mentioned this last week that these are our top 10 episodes of all time, not this year. It just so happens that all of these episodes are from this year and completely knocked out all the episodes from last year. Mm-hmm. The number 1 last year was Meet Native Plants in Small Places, I think.
Yes.
Is that with Joan Brandwine? By far was our most popular episode. We looked at it and go, nothing's ever going to beat this. And she almost held on to the top 10 and was just knocked out right at the last second. So our current top 10 episode is episode 148, which aired on March 10th, 2023, which is Black Gold with Dr. Michael Kern. So that was a real eye-opener for us when Mike came on to talk to us.
Yeah, for sure. He what a wealth of knowledge, and just a passionate guy who really is not afraid to think outside the box on how to accomplish some things, and especially when it comes to blending big industry with habitat restoration. Yeah. And we're glad to have him back on the East Coast doing some stuff as well. That was all. If you want to learn more about Wyoming and how the oil industry is actually helping with habitat restoration on a measurable scale, he's the guy.
And giving him the opportunity to do meaningful and impactful research on these interactions was pretty incredible. And like Tom said, now he's back in the East Coast doing some work in the Meadowlands and some other things and doing fantastic work. So just a super, super bright guy. And it was a very eye-opening episode. And I'm glad to see that one made the top 10 because that was one of my favorites this year.
Yeah, so then number 9 on this list, it kicks us back to the summer where we had Andrew the Arborist on. And that was episode 168. It aired on July 28th. And really cool conversation with him as well. Just a lot of talk about how he has a passion for nature and then is able to convey that passion through really, really good information and give out really good information through social media.
I was just watching one of his videos last night on Instagram about removing invasives to help spring ephemerals, which were getting choked out. And it was a fantastic video. But it was just interesting to see someone that had the opportunity to be considered an influencer on social media and take that to another level. Yeah. He created a nonprofit, and he's doing wonderful work. So it was wonderful to speak with Andrew. It's always curious how someone starts off before they're an influencer and what happens afterwards. So it was pretty cool to hear that story. Again, another one of my favorite episodes. I'm actually shocked that this one did not make it a little bit higher on the list. It kind of got knocked down a few pegs later in the year, but it was Ethnobotany and Succession with Dr. Daniela Shevitz, which was episode 146, and it aired on February 24th, 2023. We just had such a wonderful conversation, and she is just like another person that's a wealth of knowledge and a kind soul and just has a certain outlook when it comes to nature. And it's no surprise that she was a protege of Robin Wall Kimmerer.
Yeah, for sure.
But she's another person that's doing fantastic work right in our backyard. And we had so crossed paths, kind of like brushed.
We had
so close.
Close calls, interaction. Like I wouldn't even want to say interactions, like affiliated interactions.
Like we know her husband.
Friends.
We know her husband who was working for a company that we do a lot of business with. We just
you're saying that I didn't. We do.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, I don't know who that is.
I'm gonna write the name down just so.
But okay. I didn't know that.
Oh, you?
I think maybe you did tell me that, but I forgot.
Okay,
but
So there was a lot of like we've gotten close to meeting each other, and you had even reached out to her without hearing back, and then her publicist reached out to us. Yeah. So it was kind of interesting how we got Daniela on, but
and then one of the things that has been really rewarding to me about doing this podcast is we form, even though it's just sometimes it's just a couple emails and a relatively short conversation in the grand scheme of things, you form these friendships with people all over the country. And I actually got to meet Danielle. I don't know if I told you this. No. I got to meet Danielle in person at a corporate wetland restoration partnership meeting.
I did not know that.
And then got a big hug, and it was just like, I think this is the first time we've ever met in person, but it seemed like we've known each other for such a long time.
No, and every now and then she'll drop a quick note via email or something like that. It's kind of nice that we're able to become friends or colleagues with our guests because we're basically fans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When it comes down to it. So,
which leads us to our next episode, which is episode number 7 on the list, right?
Well, yes.
We're counting from the back.
No, episode number 6. Episode number 6.
Man, I think it's number 7.
Oh,
10, 9, 8. Yeah, 7.
Oh, 7. Sorry.
7.
My fault. I counted the line that said top 10 episodes of all time.
Was episode 138, talking about being fans of people. It was actually one where we were replaying the hits, and it was 2 of our early episodes with Dr. Doug Talmy and Dr. Enrique Salah. 3 hours of heavy-hitting native plant nature information coming your way.
Now, before we did a best of, these 2 episodes are on their own because they were so early on.
Yeah.
Didn't have very many listens.
Yeah, it's
not by
surprising.
today's standards.
At the time, we're like, wow, Dr. Talman came on and he got like 500 listens. That's
We're like,
amazing.
wow, that's incredible.
Then we're 2 years later and like, wow, our average episode's getting like 2,000 listens or something. And now it's even greater than that now. And it's, so we're like, we owe it to them to we want to have either of them back on at some point, but, hey, we were in a crunch in between the holidays, said, hey, let's put this together, let's play it. And
let's bring exposure to it.
We got a lot of feedback saying, wow, I can't believe just having them back to back was really amazing. So,
a lot of our listeners really have only found us in the last year. Like we grew exponentially over this past year. So they haven't made it all the way back to some of those episodes. So to give them the opportunity without skipping around to be able to hear that was pretty awesome. Number 6, now we're at number 6, was episode 160 on June 2nd, 2023, and it was Meet Native Plant Trust with Uli Lorimer. And Uli was such a fantastic guest, and we talked about he wants to come back on again. We want to have him back on again. We were a little hesitant at first when we wanted to have Uli on because Uli definitely makes a circuit and has been heard and should be heard because he's such an incredible speaker and guest. But we wanted to just make sure we could do something different and not repeat what had been done on other podcasts. So, and I think we did that. And we just kind of opened it up and said, what do you want to talk about? And there's no limits. If you want to you want to bring up something controversial, let's talk controversial. Definitely. And I think we pushed the limits a little bit and had really good conversations.
Yeah, and it's I think he's a lot in mindset is a lot like us where things are on a spectrum and your mind is always changing and you start going in one direction, then some little piece of information will turn you around and has you going back and you're just constantly kind of shifting back and forth. There was another episode where I felt a little bad because we recorded it and released it right away. And then there was another native plant podcast that had recorded over the winter and released it like a week or two later. And
sorry about that.
But I think they were actually different enough that
they were
worth listening to both.
Definitely.
But I wish that was the only time that happened, but it seems
it happens a lot.
Somewhat often.
Happens to us, we do it to other people.
So next on that list was another. I'm getting a lot of these, Fran.
You are
another one of our Replaying the Hits episodes, where we wanted to really pair 2 design episodes and put them together, and that was with Claudia West and Benjamin Vogt. Again, 2 fairly early on episodes. That was actually when it aired was. Episode 169. That was when we were both on vacation over the summer, and just really somewhat different approaches for the same kind of. Well, I'd say even the same kind of places. But trying to accomplish the same thing, and it's just and it's not like they're wildly different approaches. They're just like Claudia is saying, hey. We're talking about native plants, but we're not talking about native soils in some of these places. You have a lot of fill, so we need to have maybe a little bit more of a mix so that we have project success. And Benjamin Vogt, who I think he is also on a spectrum with some of this stuff, at that point in time was really hardline. It's got to be locally, got to be native, and like really hardcore at that point. Just cool. 2 really cool conversations.
Yeah, both working towards the same thing. And that what speaks to how good these conversations were. I mean, this one aired in August and cracked the top 5.
Yeah.
So and again, they happened so early on. We were so psyched when Benjamin came on and leaked to us that he was writing Prairie Up. Like we had the scoop before anyone else. We just didn't have the listeners to listen back then to get all excited. So, next, coming up, this one was such a great episode and happened in such unique circumstances. And we've actually been talking about this one over the last month because of different reasons. But number 4 is the Trials and Tribulations of Rewilding in an HOA. It was episode 154 and aired April 21st, 2023. And when we had Dr. Peter Groffman on, it was a 2-parter, Your Lawn Does What, Part 1 and 2. And that just barely missed making the top 10. Your Lawn Does What, Part 1 just missed making the top 10. We were talking about HOAs and the Janet Crouch, I can't remember her husband's name. I apologize.
Peter, I believe.
Janet and Peter Crouch had just won their case over the HOA in Maryland, and some of the laws had been changed because of this case. we had talked about that, and then it was
It's Jeff Crouch.
Or Jeff Crouch. Okay, sorry. Janet and Jeff Crouch. One of our listeners, Melinda Soltis, kind of reached out on the Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group and said, it's not that easy. It's not that clear cut. I'm having these issues. So Tom and I both agree. We probably approached it a little naively, and we're like, well, when we talked to Dr. Groffman, and we're like, well, Melinda, could you come on and tell us your story? And she was a little hesitant at first. I'm like, let's do it. And then if you change your mind, we won't air it.
Yeah.
Or, if you're uncomfortable, we'll edit it. We can do whatever you want. And she took some time and said, I want to do it. And man, what a fantastic episode. And she really set the perspective of, I think, pretty closely what some people really have to deal with in these situations.
For sure. I've been saying for sure a lot. This episode is kind of annoying me. So
sorry
saying,
if it's annoying
everyone else. Yeah.
Tom's son is now, that's his.
Literally today, came back from school.
Like 10
and
times.
Like, oh, man. Where did you get this from? It's not like I say it. So.
It was awesome.
You could be saying worse.
Yeah.
So.
But Melinda came on, and since then, after she appeared on us, the Joe Gardner podcast reached out to Melinda and had her on. I just thought, and she's still going through these trials and tribulations with her HOA. She's in Virginia, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And she's still having some issues. But since then, Nancy Lawson, which is a humane gardener, has reached out to us. She's the sister of Janet Crouch. To talk about the Peter Groffman episode, we talked about the Melinda Soltis. I think Nancy, Janet, and Melinda just did a panel discussion for someone over the last month. So they've all met. So it was a good conversation, and I think related a little bit more to people that are going through the struggle. Because even Nancy said to us that there were so many weird and horrible things that happened to Janet and Jeff through the things that would fill up way more than a podcast. They should probably do their own 10-part series of that. That would probably be a wonderful idea for them. But I thought that was a great episode.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I shouldn't say fun. It wasn't fun at all. It was interesting hearing that story. Fun to connect with Melinda.
Yeah.
And just kind of disheartening to hear how some people can be.
Yeah.
So, next on the list was a Buzz episode.
Our only Buzz episode, but it did crack the top 3.
And it was titled "Right Plant, Right Place." And
do you remember anything about
episode
it?
163? I have no clue.
I did look a little bit up. I think why it's so popular. That is the episode that we announced the winner of our Native Plant Anthem.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that was our Native Plant Anthem winner. And I think I'm trying to remember, your plant was something that you thought was edible, but you weren't sure. It was a species of something that
I wish I remembered all this.
I remember it was something that you wanted to cook, but then you weren't sure if it was, you were thinking it was edible, but then you weren't sure if it was edible. You know what? Hold on. I bet
I don't have it on
we should be better prepared. What episode is it? Can you look for me and just tell me what? Because I'll have the document on my laptop.
Well, it was 163.
163. Okay.
I removed it from my.
For some reason, I don't have it on my laptop.
Wow! Look at us.
Why? How do I not have it? I go from 161 to 165.
Maybe it's mistitled. That's happened before.
Possibly. That's happening. But it's our only Buzz episode that made the top 10, which is if unspoken words mean anything, I'm hearing that you like guests better than Buzz episodes.
Especially our old guests.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, three of our
3 best ofs.
Best ofs and on here. Yeah. Which I do have some good news in regards to that. So
all right, awesome. Yeah. So this one, so we had over the course of the last year, we did 4 best ofs, and that's going back to a year ago. 3 of them made the top 10. The one that didn't was soil, the rooted discussion on soil. But our number 2 episode airing on April 7th, 2023. Why did we do a best of in April? Do you remember?
I don't recall. There was a couple times we had the vacation one.
Yeah.
There was a couple times where were we sick? No, maybe not.
No, not in
you
April.
You weren't sick?
No.
where we had a guest cancel, I think.
Oh, that's what it was.
Minute.
And we were trying to put something together at the last minute, and we didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So we had someone just cancel the day, like we were recording the day before, and they had to cancel on us.
Yeah. Oh, you want to know what else we talked about on episode 163? I found the thing on I use a remote desktop. The Victorian Adventure, which I never bought. I kept forgetting to buy it. I don't know if I can buy it anymore. I'll have to look it up.
Well, I think it's supposed to come out March 2024.
Yeah,
so I think it was just a pre-purchase.
I kicked your butt in the this or that, or the week prior. It was 18 to 6.
I know my article was about in California with mushrooms being used for remediation purposes. And yours had something to do with moths.
Oh, I was looking at my plant. That's what it was. I was like, keep going down. Where'd it go? Oh, your plant for That's Hot was persimmon.
Okay.
And mine was swamp dock. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
That's right. Because there's like curly dock you can eat. The invasive one.
Yeah.
You can eat. And I was pretty sure you could. And I actually reached out to some people, and then I didn't get a chance to. We had a blue-green algae outbreak in the pond right when I was going to go collect. I'm like, I probably shouldn't do this, just because if this doesn't kill me, that definitely will. So that's what it was.
But I'm happy that if only one episode of The Buzz was going to make it, I'm happy at least made it up to number 3. And there were a couple other earlier in the year. They just eventually got pushed out. But rightfully so by some great guests. But our number 2 episode, again, April 7th, 2023, episode 152, it was Replaying the Hits with Dr. Dwayne Estes and Samuel Thayer. And this one was one where we both felt like these were incredible episodes and they needed to be heard. And Dwayne Estes was probably like episode 16. Like it was pretty early that we had him on, maybe even earlier, maybe 11. So I'm happy that these got... Obviously, that where they rank speaks for the quality of those 2 guests.
Yeah,
not us.
And where I said I had good news, if I had to pick my 2 favorite episodes, let me rephrase that. If I had to pick my top 5 favorite episodes, these 2 would be in there. They might be 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But what I was saying, I had good news. I was talking to Dwayne the other day. And then was saying, I've been meaning to tell you this for a while, but we replayed your episode from years ago when we had something going on. We replayed it, and it's our second most listened to episode all time. so yeah, and he was really flattered, and I was like, we want to have you back on at some point. It's just I know you're busy, we've been busy, and we're trying to get all these other people on. He's like, oh yeah, I definitely want to come back on. Let's pick a time, and so he will be back on sometime in the near future. I want to do the same thing with Sam Thayer too, because that was such a cool conversation. They were both early enough. Dwayne, I kind of knew what he was going to say, and he still blew my mind. Sam, I had no idea what he was going to say, and it went such a different way than I was even thinking. Talking about colonization and all that kind of stuff, and the forceful disappearance of some of our known native plant foods. Man, I think about it weekly, maybe not daily, but probably weekly. So it's shaped a little bit of who I've became, just that our conversation.
Oh, definitely.
So number 1. You go for it.
No, it's yours. I was just going to say, it definitely deserved to be number 2. You do number 1.
Number 1. And this has been
by far.
Hundreds of listens more than any other.
Actually, almost thousands.
Yeah. Was episode 156. It was a rooted discussion about the American chestnut. Had 3 great guests from ESF, American Chestnut Foundation, and Penn State, talking about what was being done with the American chestnut, where it was, where it is now in decline, almost gone in a sense, and then how they're trying to bring it back using modern technology. Another one of those episodes that's just like, oh my God, I didn't know that you could do this. And when it comes to plants. And what's interesting is this has popped up because with the Darling 58 chestnut, and I'm sure many of you heard this, the American Chestnut Foundation has actually pulled away from that plant as it's been held up. I guess they've seen in their research it didn't fare as well this year, and it gives them pause on whether it's going to work as well as they thought it was or not. SUNY ESF is still charging forward, saying, "Hey, we're going forward with this." What in that conversation, and what I gathered from conversation with all these folks after the fact too, is there's so much work being done. Sarah Fitzsimmons, who was on that episode.
Just so we recap, the three guests were Sarah Fitzsimmons from American Chestnut Foundation, Adriana Del Grosso from SUNY ESF, and Eric Carlson from SUNY ESF.
Yeah. So Sarah had told me when I saw her over the summer.
You got to visit.
Darling 58 is great, but some of the stuff that's coming down, like that we're working on now, is going to be so much better. And it's just like, this is a good start, but what's coming up next is going to blow it out of the water. Yeah. So there's a lot of hope there. So don't get too dismayed by the whole Darling 58 thing. There's still a good chance Darling 58 is going to come out in the next year or so. And but there's a lot better news coming down the pipeline too.
And one of the reasons why I loved this episode so much was we really went from the beginning. What happened?
Yeah.
What happened afterwards? What started the inkling of this comeback? And where are we at today? And what's the future? We were able to cover all those bases with probably the people most knowledgeable about this in the country. Yeah. And it was just very, very exciting to be able to have this conversation. And obviously our listeners were too, to make it number one. So it was a great year of podcasts. And so many great podcasts that didn't make it, or so many that have been knocked out. And I'm interested to see, Tom, knowing the numbers that we have on the American Chestnut, is that in our top 10 next year?
Man.
We've only had like one episode made it 2 years, and that was the rooted discussion, the herbaceous grower.
Yeah.
I think.
I would say.
Oh, wait, no. Was it? What was the one that Rick McCoy was on?
That was about soil. No. That was gardening.
Gardening with native plants. That had made it 2 years.
Yeah.
So it was like number one year, and I think it was like number 3 or 4 the next year.
I would say I could see it. I don't think it'll be top 5, but I think it'll be on there.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think it will be. I think it's going to be somewhere between 4 and 7.
Now that we've been doing this for a couple of years, it's interesting. I'd heard at some point there's podcasting seasons. We're approaching peak podcasting season shortly. Like that early, like February, March, April podcasting season. May is great. June, July, August, people are doing stuff. They're outside. It starts to dip off. The fall, it'll pick up a little bit more. But then you have the holidays, so the holidays make things all funky. And then, we're approaching, like, if I was going fishing, like, I'm gearing up right now. This is when we need to bring our A game every day. And you're spending all kinds of time with a line in the water. That's a weird analogy. This is peak podcasting season.
Yeah.
So, and if you look at a lot of our top 10, they're in that
peak podcasting season.
I'm just looking real quick. It's March.
The one that
March, July, February, December, June, August, April, May.
The August is the one that defies it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that one just kind of exploded. We were on a hot streak there, and I think that's why. Yeah. All right. So what do you think? Take it or leave it?
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the time. We're trying to keep this one at a respectable level. Mm-hmm. So
respectable for us, not so much for everyone else. I know people want to listen to us all day, but we have things to do.
I put a link in the show notes for you to look at. So my take it or leave it is biodegradable poop bags for pets. I think they're finding they're not as biodegradable as being touted.
Tends to be the case.
And there's really, I guess there are some better alternatives out there. You really just have to do your research, but they're still saying they'd rather see you use a biodegradable poop bag than just let the poop sit. What do you think?
I'm wondering why.
I guess from the environmental standpoint, I guess they're looking at the nitrogen that the poop would leave, as opposed to the footprint that the the possibly not so biodegradable bags. I guess they're saying it's how the bags are disposed of, that it's hit or miss, or may take exponentially way longer than what's
it's another one of those things.
Like in nature, no one's walking behind and picking it up.
Yeah, and it tends to decompose pretty quickly because you have really healthy soil and tons of microbes and that num and get rid of it really fast. Not happening on the lawn at your local park.
Now we talked about like the footprint that a family of 5 Canadian geese would leave.
Yeah.
Or it's like one Canadian goose in a week leaches more nitrogen than a septic tank of a family of 5 in like a month or something. It's some like crazy statistic like that.
Yeah.
So I understand, but I think like for a dog, I guess if it's always in the same concentrated spot, maybe that's more of the issue.
Yeah. So I know with cat poop, you have the toxoplasmosis thing, and it's actually hazardous. So keep your cats inside. And this is one of those things where I'm trying to dig back and say, is this really the problem? Is that the bags not being biodegradable enough is partially a problem, but it's like you start thinking about it, it's like, well, you're picking up the poop because you don't want other people to step in the poop, and you're throwing it away, so then it's something that can be compostable that is no longer compostable because it's wrapped in a bunch of plastic. And then, so it's like, would it be better, do we have to clean up because it's a lawn? Is that why?
So,
and it's, but then like where are people going to walk their dogs if it's a meadow instead? They're not going to walk in the meadow. And then if you're walking in the meadow, now you're really not going to see the poop if you step in it. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
So let's see here. Just we definitely want to pick up the waste rather than leave it spread out around our environment. But we also need to make sure the nutrients don't leach into our waterways and that the pathogens are contained and properly destroyed.
Yeah.
So that's
I think about it leaching in the waterways. It's because it's on. If that was a meadow, or there's just a meadow buffer around there, that problem is almost eliminated. They've seen that with farm fields and nutrient runoff. You have a 10-foot buffer by the ditch line, the nutrient load drops 90 to 99%.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm thinking is there's a nutrient problem, but it's because of the lawn not providing good infiltration, not because of the poop is the source, but it's because of the conditions, not because of the poop. That makes sense? Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense. So I'm just going to read a couple things that they said. According to the FTC, marketers of dog waste bags may be deceiving customers with the use of their unqualified biodegradable claims.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but you mean that there's marketing people out there trying to deceive people?
No. Come on, no way. It says, if, for example, a product says it's biodegradable, consumers like you and me probably think it will break down in the trash or composting bin within a year or so, but that's not always the case. Let's see. Unlike regular plastic bags that linger in the environment for decades, centuries even, biodegradable poop bags are designed to break down naturally over a shorter period of time. But as it turns out, the process can be hindered if the conditions aren't right. In order to break down, these bags require precise levels of moisture, air, and heat. This means tossing them in the backyard to let nature work its magic will leave you with an ever-growing and increasingly stinky pile. Even the very best, most scientifically proven biodegradable plastics won't degrade in a landfill, where compression or lack of oxygen leads to mummification. So,
makes sense. There's biodegradable. For those of you who have seen vegetable farms, there's black plastic mulch. They've made biodegradable versions of that made out of cornstarch or seaweed a lot of times. But it makes you think, well, how fast is it going to biodegrade? It's out in the elements. It's on the surface. And it's like, well, it doesn't until you incorporate it with the soil. So basically, after the the planting season's done, the harvest season's done, you just disc it under and it goes away. And that the plants break down because of the microbes in the soil. But if you just left it on top, it'll last a long time. Yeah. So I'm assuming it's probably a similar product.
Yeah, I think so. What they're actually, one of the recommendations is to bury it.
Yeah.
Flush it. Bring it in the house. They said they make water-soluble waste bags and bring it in the house and flush it, so at least it's getting treated in a municipal waste system, or take it to a municipal composting facility.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, makes sense. It reminds me of, it's not as big of a thing on the East Coast, but like out west, you have the people who are doing like really going out in the backcountry and either hunting, fishing, hiking, those kind of things, and they're taking a lot of poops outside.
Yeah.
And on the East Coast, we don't do that as much because we don't have to. Like even if you're at a trail, there's usually a bathroom within jogging distance. But out west, they have that more often. And I know one of the big complaints a lot of people have is with, I'll keep it clean, but surface poopers. A lot of people, they use the alliteration version of that. And they're like, at least flip a rock. Like flip a rock over, go where the rock was, flip the rock back on top. But even that causes some problems. They really recommend digging a hole so that other people don't have to walk in it. But so same. Maybe that's the practice for your dogs.
But the funny thing was when I saw this, it's not something that I had ever. I'm a dog owner.
Oh yeah,
not something that I had ever really contemplated.
Yeah,
I was like, all right, this is something else I have to worry about now.
With our dog growing up, we would go out there with a shovel like once or twice a week and fling him in the woods behind our house. But not everyone has that luxury. Yeah, and I don't know if that's the right thing to do. It's we just assumed it was. But, interesting, Fran.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can say if I'm taking it or leaving it, but
I don't know either.
It depends.
I'm not bringing it in the house to flush it either. I'm sorry. That's I'm not going that route either.
Nope. So all right. Well, that's going to wrap us up. We thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed listening to The Buzz. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Native Plants, Healthy Planet, presented by Pinelands Nursery.
Thank you to RJ Comer for our Buzz intro theme music. Make sure you stream or buy RJ's music wherever you consume music, and check out his Americana playlist on Pandora. Thank you to Dave Bennett for our Native Plant Anthem. You can follow us on Twitter at Pineland Nursery, Facebook at Pinelands Nursery NJ, Instagram at Native Plants _Healthy Planet, and YouTube at Pinelands Nursery. Don't forget about the question and comment line. We've been on a roll, 3 episodes in a row with call-ins. You can call us at 215-346-6189. I will repeat that, 215-346-6189. Ask a question or leave a comment. We'll do our best to play it on a future episode of The Buzz. And thank you to all of our participants in the Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group. Again, I say it every time, but I mean it. It just keeps growing and staying just as kind and polite and friendly. I appreciate that.
So you can buy Native Plants Healthy Planet merch at our website, www.nativeplantshealthyplanet.com. There's all kinds of designs up there now. Some of those designs will be no longer in the next couple weeks. We're going to start we'll give you a heads up
that we're going to retire some with the old logo, and we have a new logo that we're really excited. We did kind of throw the logo out on the Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook page, but we have iterations of it as well.
Yes,
like we have colored versions. There's so many cool things about it, like in color schemes that we're super pumped about.
Yeah. So, and we don't keep any of the money from that. Like Fran mentioned before, one of our things is trying to give back to other organizations. So we are basically capturing that money into a PayPal account. When it comes time, we pump it out and then give it to the people who we think are really doing a good job, boots on the ground, native plant work out there. So if you can do us a favor, if you haven't subscribed already, wherever you listen, do that. Subscribe or add us to your playlist or whatever, and then give us a 5-star review, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. No, Stitcher no more. It's still on here, but I still say it sometimes.
No, didn't I take it off?
Oh, maybe I just still say it because it's in my brain.
You've been saying it for 3.5 years.
iHeartRadio. I was looking up where it shows you how many listens you get per platform, and it's like Apple Podcasts far and away. Then Spotify is like a very heavy favorite number 2, and it's like iHeartRadio,
and then it's
like
everywhere.
4.
Yeah, and then it's everywhere. It's like Alexa-enabled devices. It's kind of like a little bit of everything.
So chances are you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, and if you are, and you haven't left us a 5-star review, you're going to get coal for Christmas.
Yes, you are.
You probably already did.
Yeah.
By the time you're hearing this, so.
And some non-biodegradable poop packs.
You have till next year to change your ways, leave us a review, and maybe
redeem yourself.
Your gift giver of choice is going to give you something nice.
Put you on the nice list.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, everyone. Oh, yeah. secret?
I don't have one.
You don't have a secret?
No.
I could have said that my son is saying, "Oh man," and we don't know why. I did say that's better than some alternatives, but he has cursed before.
All right, I will give you a secret based on your son.
Yeah.
When I ratted him out for the dog, he gave me the dirtiest look.
Oh,
like he stared me down. He was like, he
yeah.
looked at me and just was like,
he is a big personality. It's and it did not come from me. It's definitely from my wife. It's yeah.
It was funny, but he looked and then looked away and then just like looked back just to like, yeah, I meant it that way.
Oh yeah. It's I'm trying to think of something else that might have happened at home. But yeah, no, he does say some curse words every once in a while. And yeah, it's I'm trying to come to the root of where he's hearing these, because I tend to not curse very much, if at all. So and neither does his mom. So I'm not sure where it's coming from. Maybe kids at school.
Maybe you have to have a talk with Pop-Up.
Yep. Yeah. But yeah, so maybe that's my secret is give me some advice. So how do you handle your kids cursing?
There you go.
At a young age. So I've heard that you just don't, you kind of like ignore it, or you say, hey, that's not a nice thing to say. Yeah. And then you move on.
It's hard. You kind of have to be prepared and not react.
But it was like,
in a way where they're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like he'll say something like, I want to make sure I heard it right, because he still has a little kid voice.
Yeah.
What did you just say? Okay. Yeah, no, I thought you said something else. I did see another video, and the person was saying, they're like, okay, that's a bad word, but you really don't want to say like cotton-headed ningy-muggins. Then they make up some like nonsense word. Yeah. That's the word you really don't want to say, and it distracts them into saying the nonsense word and then they forget about the real.
That's good advice.
Verse.
I like that.
Yeah. So with that, thank you, everyone. I'm Tom.
And I am Fran. Thank you again, everyone. Coming up next week, we have a new episode with Amanda Crook of Locust Light Farm, and she's an herbalist, which is a topic that we really haven't approached, so we're looking forward to that. We'll see you again next time. Have a very safe and happy New Year, and until then, keep it native.
Woods, wetlands, and dales grows a bounty of beauty that never fails. Our native plants, so diverse and so rare, treasures of our land beyond compare. From the ferns below, soaring oaks above, each plant has a place, each plant is love. Monarch caterpillars launch milk, wheat so tall, bees buzz about, sipping nectar fall. Oh, native plants, how you grace this land. In your diversity, we will take a stand. To preserve our generations of calm, their beauty and potency second to none. To protect and preserve the earth, to restore the native plant movement you just can't ignore.
Goldenrod, asters, and flowers galore. Monarch is so stunning, can't help but adore. Their colors, their fragrance, a feast for the eye. Their value to wildlife, no need to disguise.
Native plants, how you grace this land. In your diversity, we will take a stand.
Thank you for listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Remember to like, share, follow, and comment.